Buttigieg is a very intelligent man that's highly educated, and he has a unique set of skills that come in extremely handy when it comes to discussion and debate. He likes to take that and put it in front of the nation and, in full display so he can get to the heart of the matter and explain to the people his exact position on any given topic. He's not afraid to go into the lion's den. I've seen him on have town hall type of discussions in deep red states. I've seen him go on right-wing news, right-wing podcasts, right-wing interviews, as you'll see in this next clip. He's not afraid to walk in there, and he has this unique way of just calmly taking over the discussion, moving it in the direction he wants, and making his point across, even though a lot of the job of these right-wing commentators are just to try to give you gotcha questions and make him look bad, as you'll see in this next clip.
Most people are against President Trump's health care cuts, many of which will go into effect next year, I think kind of cleverly timed to come just after the election. So that, to me, is where the center of gravity of the country meets the center of gravity in my party. And that's what my focus is on when I'm traveling around the country. I go to a lot of places, including more conservative places. We were in Nebraska recently. I was in Arkansas campaigning. And those are the things people most want to know about. How is my life going to be different depending who's in charge?
So you just pitched to them healthcare because that does top the list for a lot of people. They're concerned about the affordability issue when it comes to healthcare. Right. I'm surprised even to see that topping gas, food prices, housing prices even. It sounds like you're pitching Medicare for all. So what do you see?
Well, you remember we had a whole debate over this back when I was running for president. I favored something we called Medicare for all who want it. The idea is that there is that publicly available plan, but we're not going to force anybody onto it. I still think that's the right answer. And it's interesting, some of the critics of that plan before have come to embrace it now. I think it would be a good policy. But yeah, the cost of healthcare, the cost of gas, obviously through the roof as a direct result of President Trump breaking his promise not to start a war and what's going on in the Iran war. These are the things I'm being asked about when I'm on the road.
See, and that's what I'm saying, exactly what he did there. She tried to set up, that his stance on insurance and stuff was a bad stance, and she was more than likely going to move into a situation where well, how are you going to use that? How are you going to implement that? How are you going to get it done? To try to put him on the spot. But he was ready for it, completely ready for it. He just concisely explained his option, and that's the key word, is he gave her the option. He's like, Medicare for all is a good idea, but it's not for everybody, and those that want to keep their insurance are more than likely to keep their insurance. But if you can't afford it, like myself, I'm currently in that situation. I don't have insurance because they want $650 a month plus $3,000 worth of deductibles. So I'm going to pay over $8,000 a year just to have the insurance. And then I have to pay the first $3,000, which, is several doctor visits. So I'm more than likely never going to benefit from the insurance. So if I had an option to get cheaper insurance, I would definitely take it. And that's exactly what this plan would do, is give people another option. And I like that he used that word. So as you'll see in this next clip, Pete takes his discussion and he aims it at Trump and his war in Iran. Take a look.
At this point in the war, I know you've been very critical of how long we have been in it, and you feel that President Trump has broken his promise to the American people.
Well, not I feel. He made a specific promise and then he did something else.
So at this point, based on where we are, what would you like to see happen next if you were advising President Trump?
Well, if I was advising President Trump, I'm trying to try that scenario on for size. I guess I'd advise him to start by telling the truth to the American people. Because when he says it's going to be 4 weeks and then breaks that promise, it reminds people of when he said he wouldn't start this war and broke that promise. When he says he will settle for nothing less than unconditional surrender and regime change, and then changed his mind, backpedaled, and agreed to a framework for a ceasefire that was very different, then that ceasefire has been broken. The outrageous news that we just got, that the Trump administration removed the names of 4 of our service members who were killed in action, apparently because the fact that they had been killed in action goes against his fiction that sometimes he says we're actually not in a war, even though everybody knows we are.
And once again, see how smoothly and calmly he just took control of the situation. She was trying to, make a scenario where well, if you were in charge and you were advising, what would you do since you're so smart and so intelligent? And he calmly answered, well, if I was in charge, I would advise him to do this and to do that. And he points out these things, in such a way that it meets the common man. He's like, that guy talks like one of us. He thinks like one of us. And in most cases, he can relate all the way across the board. And that's why I said he goes into even these red states, and a lot of times he gets standing ovations, or he gets people that come up to him afterward and tell him, man, I didn't know your stance on this. And of course, there's always the haters because he's gay, and there's always going to be those people. But it's important that you get out in front of the people like Pete does, and you explain your platform in a nice, calm way that they can understand, because we need help in America. And I think Pete Buttigieg, what a name, right? He's the type of guy that can get this type of thing done. He's very smart, very intelligent, and he's the younger guy. We're tired of these octogenarians running things. We need some new, fresh ideas in there to change the world and change America for the better.